For film class, comp and media here, we had to do an assignment where we had to review a book and then review the movie and compare the differences. And obviously it's a film class, so a lot of the emphasis was on the movie. And this made me really think, because I originally did not know anything about Perks of Being a Wallflower. I didn't know about the plot. I didn't know anything about the author. I didn't know what it was about, basically. Or that it was about a 90s high school boy named Charlie. I didn't know who Charlie was. He didn't exist in my mind. But this made me think, like, as someone who's about to graduate, like, class of 2024, I had my freshman year online, and I was thinking, how different is the media's depiction of high school and high school experiences as a teenager from my own experiences? As someone who had freshman year online due to COVID, how different was my life? Do we share any similarities between me and somebody who a fictional character who grew up in the 90s in Pittsburgh? Socially awkward teen Charlie is a wallflower, always watching life from the sidelines, until two charismatic students become his mentors. Free-spirited Sam and her stepbrother Patrick help Charlie discover the joys of friendship, first love, music, and more, while a teacher sparks Charlie's dreams of becoming a writer. However, as his new friends prepare to leave for college, Charlie's inner sadness threatens to shatter his newfound confidence. Perks of Being a Wallflower is essentially a story about someone who's a recluse and didn't really talk or make a presence for himself. As he grows and finds, I'd say, the power to be able to participate more in life, finding a healthy medium between standing out from the crowd, making a life of your own, but also being able to listen and sit back and notice that the attention doesn't always have to be on you at every moment. And I think Charlie's development throughout the book was extremely interesting, and as someone who related to Charlie so much when they were a freshman, looking back, I really wanted to just make this video to compare my high school experiences as a senior to Charlie's, especially because this was written during the golden age of Tumblr. Red cameras, succulents, fairy lights, Arctic monkeys, the pessimistic, nihilist, we're all gonna die, art is beautiful, humanity is dead kind of grungy, tortured artist. And I think this movie really is a good time capsule. Looking back 10 years later, I saw this movie just now for the first time. It really just felt like a walking Tumblr post. You could easily find like aesthetic edits on YouTube and Pinterest of especially Patrick and Charlie from Perks of Being a Wallflower.
I think anyone noticed me. I know she would understand how I'm both happy.
And it really has shown its age, honestly. But I think my high school experience from Charlie's, they're really not that different, despite being decades apart. As Charlie makes these new friends and begins to develop his social circle, he begins going to parties, smoking a lot of cigarettes, which is seen as the norm, unfortunately, in the 90s, even though he's a freshman. He starts doing drugs, drinking, having relationships with people, already going to prom, and obviously the norms of the 90s were extremely different from 2024. Obviously, I wasn't doing that stuff freshman year. I was in my house during COVID making friendship bracelets and falling asleep during math class on Zoom, so obviously they're different, but this is seen as such to me, partying and all of these like taboo, dangerous things, the adrenaline rush from those is seen as such a huge part of high school and growing up in the media. You see shows like Euphoria, people are excited for high school in the media because they get to go to these parties, they get to do grown-up things. And Perks of Being a Wallflower definitely highlights that, the highs and lows of that.
To Charlie.
To Charlie.
Welcome to the island of misfit toys.
Highs and lows of dating, for example.
You see, Mary Elizabeth is a really nice person underneath the part of her that hates everyone.
Hey!
And since I heard that having a girlfriend makes you happy, I tried hard to love her like I love Sam. Or if she would stop calling me the minute I get home from school when I have absolutely nothing to talk about other than the bus ride home.
What I find funny about this trope is how unrealistic it is, because I didn't start going to parties until like late junior year, and it was just a couple. I feel like high school for me, it wasn't just all academics. But at the same time, there were no parties, there were no making mixtapes for people, there were no going to football games, eating nachos, smoking cigarettes, talking to seniors. Like, Secret Santa was rarely like a thing we even had time for anymore, or the money for it. Like the concept of parties and stuff and all of that, like the excitement of that in high school is really overplayed, and I understand why it's such a popular trope, because we want to romanticize the mundane. So an experience that's usually so boring and like everybody has, it's high school, you've survived through it. Being 15 is the worst thing to happen to you. Like, of course you want to romanticize something that's typically boring, but Seeing that it's like such a popular trope, and I feel like a lot of people, especially me as a teenager, strive to live that out in real life. My life was definitely, like, my high school experience was definitely a lot less thrilling than Charlie's. We didn't even have time for Secret Santa a lot of the time, maybe like 1 or 2 years. I'm not saying your friendships are gonna suck, but like, high school gets busy, guys. I've realized that, especially as a senior and a junior, like, there's so many things you have going on, you really just don't have time for, like, parties anymore. Like, they just don't interest you, or even if they do, like, you don't have time, you don't have a ride. You're not gonna have that cool older brother figure that's gonna pick you up. Although one thing that really resonated with me was the kind of trope of the neurodivergent or the gay character and their English teacher. It's such a... I wouldn't even say it's a trope because it's so accurate as someone who's neurodivergent and gay. Like, that bond with your English teacher really is inseparable. Like, me and my AP Lang teacher, a year later, like, I'd say having her class was life-changing. So I feel like Charlie's seeking comfort in Bill and seeing him as kind of a parental figure, especially when his parents really didn't have much time for him anyway.
Why do nice people choose the wrong people to date?
Are we talking about anyone specific?
Well, we accept the love we think we deserve.
Can we make them know that they deserve more?
We can try.
That was something that was accurate and that I related to a lot. I'm not saying everyone's gonna have that experience, but it was just one of those small details, like seeking comfort in, like, you finally find a trusted adult in high school in such a new and scary environment, and Chomsky including that detail just really added to, like, the ability to resonate with Charlie as a character. And in the past 4 years, I really wish I could say growing out of my shell, beginning in my freshman year, was as easy as it was for Charlie, but really, like, it's gonna be hard to find those kind of older idols, those people in high school that know more than you and you can look up to them and they can take you under your wing. I was really fortunate to have people like that, but honestly, it's really not going to be like that all the time. For me, it was a slow process trying to adjust to high school, trying to adjust to independence, growing up, changing relationships and feelings and ideas. Charlie was lucky. He got popular extremely fast, and I feel like now, especially in 2024, people are going to be less likely to take you seriously if you're younger. Obviously, I've had that experience myself. And also, I think people just behaved and looked older in the 90s, I swear, because I get mistaken for a sophomore. I'm literally 18 years old. So I think it was really funny, especially in the film. Charlie looked like a full-grown man. I'm going to be really serious with you. And Sam and Charlie's relationship, by the way, it's not accurate. It wasn't, like, obviously it's normal to have a crush on someone that's older than you and someone who has that dynamic with you. At the same time, like, I feel it was dating a senior as a freshman, or like at least being romantically involved with a senior as a freshman, was a lot more normalized back then. That was something that kind of grossed me out a lot. The underage drinking, the underage drug use, I feel like a lot of it was just what we would consider now to be disturbing, to be obviously ethically wrong. I didn't start dating until my sophomore year, but like as a senior, I'd say really just wait. And with the actual production of the movie, as someone who is taking film and is a huge film nerd, someone who has coined the term film bro and used it a little bit too many times, I'd say the color grading especially, like just those small details. The color grading, the typography, just the general like details that are written in, scenes that are written in, amplify the like whole Tumblr art kid aesthetic of this so much. In the movie, there's a lot of yellows and oranges, and like there's very distinct color grading that makes it look like it was homemade, amateur, aged film, you know. I'll put some examples on screen, but the motif of typewriters. There's a very iconic picture from Perks of Being a Wallflower where Sam writes, "Write about us," when she gives him this typewriter, and Charlie says, "I will." And the use of the font in general, I don't know what font. I'm not into typography. It's my least favorite part of graphic design. This just feels like a walking time capsule. If you really dissect Tumblr culture, it feels like a walking time capsule. It feels like when I was 13 looking up Tumblr red aesthetic, Tumblr forest aesthetic, finding these images, Tumblr artsy photoshoot. Like, it really just is. Like, I wouldn't say it aged like milk, but it is kind of laughable seeing. It's such a product of the time that it was made in, Perks of Being a Wallflower. There's still, like, cheesy edits on YouTube about Ezra Miller playing Patrick because... And even the fashion, the music, the pop culture, like, have you seen the music? Like, the Smiths and stuff, like, records are cool. Oh, records are such a better form of playing music. Rocky Horror, they're all going to see Rocky Horror in the theater and, like, recreate it, because that is such a... If you don't know Rocky Horror, it is a tradition to basically dress up and lip sync to the movie with your friends. And just the scene of Stephen Chbosky, when he wrote the scene of Sam with her head outside of the sunroof of the car underneath that tunnel with her arms out, he said he got that idea from imagining a kid doing that exact thing, and when this inspired him to include that scene of Sam. And the tunnel was such an important part, and I think there's obviously a lot of thematic messaging behind the tunnel, but I really don't want to dissect that right now. But just that, like, it's such a romanticizable scene. The composition of it, just the experience, it's something that you don't see every day. It's something that can be so easily turned into like an aesthetic image, something to recreate, something to reproduce, which I thought was kind of funny. And I'm not saying this to slander 2012 culture. This is actually like out of love for it, honestly. I think the internet aesthetic was such a distinct, we had such a distinct aesthetic for the 2010s. And I'd say this is a time capsule. Looking back, we need to bring back being cringe but free. We need to bring back romanticizing every single moment of our lives, trying to live like we're still in a teenage movie. Because life gets boring, and when you romanticize it, as long as you don't force it, it's fun. So much of this movie feels homemade, and it feels like it's through the eyes of Charlie. In these distinct stylistic choices, no matter how cheesy they may seem, especially in the bigger picture, I still think they were important choices. I think dating a piece of media isn't necessarily a bad thing. But looking back, you don't see movies like this. You see Asteroid City. They're not using, Asteroid City isn't the kind of movie that you would play, a Arctic Monkeys song over for an edit, you know? Which I just think that's, such a very 2024 thing to say. And also a lot of the tropes, like Mary Elizabeth being not like other girls because she's a feminist. She wants to go to film school. And, how Patrick is, the token gay character who's flamboyant and loud and nosy, doesn't care about anyone else. He's the class clown. Sam is the cool girl. She's hip. She's not like other girls, but in a more meaningful, poetic way. A lot of these tropes are really funny, and Candace is a cool, popular girl that everyone likes. I feel like obviously we still have tropes in media today, but just seeing that especially the trope of not like other girls, not like other boys. And also I'm not gonna go too deep into this, but just the general queer representation really is dating it more. Being not like other girls and the rejection of femininity was such an important piece of 2010s culture. I'm not saying it was a good piece, but it was definitely something that was distinctive of that time. Not wanting to be like other girls, wanting to be a tomboy that's cool. You're your name in a fan fiction who gets adopted by One Direction. Because you're different, you're unique, you're quirky. This isn't slandering that, but it was something I noticed a lot. They're philosophical, they listen to Vital, guys. A lot of people online and that I know, especially part of our Mattia News staff, regard Perks of Being a Wallflower one of the most cherishable movies. It was a movie that had a huge impact on them. It's their favorite. They hold it close to their home, which I understand. I can see why it was a good movie, because it gave you a character that you could actually relate to. Not someone who's a superhero, someone who is flawless, someone who's perfect, lovable, iconic. Charlie was iconic, but because you could resonate with him. You could resonate with every single character. The book covered some very serious topics accurately. It didn't tread around them carefully. It addressed them properly. It addressed true real-life experiences that you're going to go through as a teenager. It doesn't try to sugarcoat it. Trying to maintain your friendships, figuring out dating, relationship violence, drug use. I can see I personally really didn't enjoy the movie that much because I couldn't get past the fact that it felt so cheesy to me, and just some things felt so wrong watching them now. But I still understand, in terms of production, it was a good movie. It had good writing. The book especially I enjoyed a lot. I can see why it's a good movie. Overall, I would say it's a 3 out of 5 for me, because the book obviously I enjoyed more, but the film, it's memorable. It gives you a reason to choose. Why Perks of Being a Wallflower versus any other movie like The Fault in Our Stars or 500 Days of Summer? It gives you these distinct character traits of the movie, a distinct format, distinct use of color, characters that are fleshed out and have their own traits and their own flaws, their own pros. It addresses things that are accurate to teenagers, things that make you feel seen, especially as someone who's grown up with mental illness feeling isolated. That book, it was relatable. Charlie's downfall and eventually his recovery and how he's grown as a person were relatable. And I can understand why people hold this very near and dear to their heart. As we wrap up this review, I would say it's a good movie. I wouldn't say it's life-changing. I wouldn't say you're going to die if you don't watch it. I'd at least recommend reading the book. It still is a good movie. It's a good movie to dissect, really. It's a good artifact of Tumblr culture. It's a good artifact of going on Pinterest. It's the whole aesthetics era that's still ongoing, honestly. It's a good time capsule. It's a good representation of growing up and being a teenager, although I personally did not relate to it that much. I mean, like, I related to Charlie's growth, his personal development, his struggles, although I really don't expect yourself, if you're an incoming, like, teenager, high schooler, don't expect to be going to parties all the time and throwing up and passing out, shoveling snow. Thank you for watching my review. It's really bittersweet to be graduating, and I think comparing high school media to my high school experiences and kind of synthesizing some kind of piece of work like this video essay was really fun, interesting. It's nice to wrap up the year with some more production, something that I haven't been able to do before as someone who does primarily photography if you see me running around with a camera. Thank you for watching.